is happening, fellow fantasy GMs? I am JJ Wang. He is the bearded one, DJ Dub. And with our powers combined, we are the Fantasy Couriers.
It's officially the fantasy football off season, JJ Wang. We are getting ready for basically a new year. You got the new do for those that are watching. JJ Wang is lockless. He is now wearing the old DJ Dove buzz cut. DJ Dove is growing the JJ Wang hair. It's bizarro world, brother. How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm doing good. I couldn't take it anymore. Too much hair in my mouth all the time, and my food. It's just out of control. I couldn't take it. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little sad. I don't know if it's really sad that the fantasies are. I mean, it's kind of relaxing that I can watch a football game and not have to worry about the fantasy score and every now and then. But it's pretty relaxing.
So you don't want to do fantasy playoffs with me?
Not really.
I don't even think I'm gonna do it this year. Like, I'm just so tired. I'm just gonna do like DFS or something. I usually do a playoff league. I kind of like the way it goes. Maybe I'll change my mind, but we'll see this week. But yeah, so we made it through the season. So if you're still listening to us, that means you love fantasy football, or we've tricked you into loving us. So either way, we love you, and we're gonna go this realistically about the month of January into February. We'll touch on the playoffs because it might affect some of you, but we're gonna look at the season that was. And then once we get into February, JJ Wang's expertise, film watching and stat reading and college football wherewithal is going to come out, and we'll look at rookies for a couple months, talk about some players leading into the season, and we're going to look forward. We'll hit free agency. Then before we know it, it's going to be training camp. We're going to blink because we're old. Every time we blink, something new happens is what I notice. Or time passes, and we're like, hey, it's next year.
Yeah, it doesn't. It goes by fast. I mean, I feel like it keeps going. It gets faster and faster every year. I mean, by the time I'm 60, I don't even want to see it by the time I'm 70, 60,
Uh, I'm looking at next year. We'll both have your girl's already in high school. Next year, my girl will be in high school. We're getting old, man. We're getting old.
Man.
I'm thinking like next year will be. See, I started fantasy football in 1999, so this year will be my 25th anniversary of fantasy football. How about that?
All right. 25th anniversary.
Quarter of a century I've been playing this crazy wild game. So, and the cool treat we will have for everybody over the next month, we're going to have some fantasy champions from some of the leagues we're in. Part of that will be if people listen to us, we might have them on our podcast. So if you're on our podcast, you got to listen to the podcast. Maybe we'll make some of them really long, so you got to do a little effort towards it. I'm talking to you, Rich, if you ever listen to us. So here we go. This week, what we're going to do is JJ Wang and I, we're the stars of the show this week. We're going to talk about some of our fantasy guys who saved our season, or fantasy MVPs, or guys that just had really good seasons. Like I threw in a guy I don't have anywhere, and I might change it in Zagus in a moment here, but we're going to look at our guys who saved our season in fantasy MVPs. We're going to have one for each position, a rookie, and then an overall guy who we thought would be a fantasy MVP. They might not be the NFL MVP. They might not be the greatest. It might be based upon strictly how they drafted and how they helped out teams this year. So are you ready, JJ Wang? I got no cool intro. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, let's do it. I feel like there's kind of two ways to look at this. I mean, you say a guy who saved your season, like he was good throughout the whole season, or it could be the guy that was good, the second half of the season. So I mean, there's multiple ways you can go about this. It just opens up your ability to name more guys.
Yeah, talking about introducing more, we could talk about Josh Allen today. We're going to start with quarterbacks. Initially, I had Josh Allen in there because I was trying to think, who's the quarterback that took me to a championship? That is Josh Allen. He's the only one that got me there. There's other guys I've had on the leagues. But you have me do a little looking, and I was watching. We're recording this during the 4 o'clock games on Sunday, so it's not over yet. But I was watching, just spent some time watching the Packers, and man, that Jordan Love, he is I never thought I would have said it, my quarterback guy who saved seasons. He didn't save mine, but I think he saved a bunch of people's seasons based upon where he was drafted. If he was drafted by teams, he was single quarterback. He might not have went draft. He probably went undrafted, dual quarter, super flex ready or double quarterback. He probably went in the later rounds, and you walked out with a top 5. He was the number 5 quarterback on the year. Before he had 30 plus touchdowns. Dude had almost 4,000 yards. These are the stats before the end of this game this week. Holy moly. Are the Packers, are they the most brilliant franchise in NFL history at choosing quarterback? Bart Starr,
I
Brett
mean,
Favre.
I don't know if they're brilliant. I guess you just get
Lucky.
lucky. I mean, they did it right with Jordan Love. I mean, he's had 3 or 4 years to develop, so I mean that helps out a lot there. But yeah, I mean, they look good. Looks like they found the next guy that can carry their franchise. I mean, I'm a fan. I liked him in the beginning of the season. Kind of like had a rough patch, but overall, last 6 7 games, he's been fantastic. Top 12 quarterback. It's going to be interesting whether or not he's drafted like a top 12 quarterback.
Yeah, and it's. I wish other teams would look at what the Packers do. We look at successful like they. It's a new league, but what they've done, if Jordan Love is good for the next 15 years because they had him set and learn the game. I mean, Bryce Young looked terrible. Would Bryce Young have been better off suited to sit and watch a year or two? Look, remember Carson Palmer did that, even if it's just a year. John Kitna led that good Bengals team, and then Carson Palmer played and had a good Bengals career. And that Steelers hit took out his career. But, maybe that's what these guys need when they come in to adapt to the program. Even, I mean, he did come from Utah State, so it was a smaller program. So maybe the smaller school guys like Carson Wentz might have helped.
Or Or you can just be good like my guy and come in and start
I
from the
love
get
your
go.
guy. Your guy is he's my favorite new
And
player.
that's CJ Stroud. I mean, the number 2 pick. Nobody had a lot of expectations for CJ Stroud. Nobody thought he was going to be all that great. I mean, he was drafted number 2, so obviously Texans thought he was going to be good. But as far as fantasy wise goes, rarely drafted. I mean, he was going to be your lower end QB2 with not very high expectations, and he came in, blew it out of the water, finished with over 4,000 yards, 23 only 5 interceptions. That's the great thing. His decision making was great. And he did get 3 rushing touchdowns, so he can run the ball a little bit, and he's also got 2 good wide receivers. So I mean, this guy, I mean, he kind of failed on you a little bit in the end of the season,
That hurt him.
but being where you drafted, I mean, he was a top 10 QB, top 5 QB in some points, and that got you to the playoffs.
Yeah, I was gonna say, really, the difference between Stroud and Love. Why I would put Love, I love CJ Stroud. He's my new favorite player. Like at one point, I think I even talked on here about I considered trading Lamar Jackson for him because you're talking years of service kind of deal with a studs on either ends. Is his receivers? Are those good receivers? Or did he make them good? Is the interest? Nico still played good when he was out. So Nico made that 3rd-year step. Is Tank any good? Is Noah Brown any good? We don't know if it was CJ Stroud, but Jordan Love was thrown to bags of sand. I mean, now Dontavian Wicks is the new big thing, or Bo Melton. I started him on my DFS this week. So imagine if those two guys, if the receivers come back for CJ Stroud and the receivers step up for Jordan Love, we could be talking about these guys for years and years to come. I like the future for these two. Where would you put these two guys? Where would you put these two guys for next year's rankings?
I mean, I think they're both in that 8 to 12 range. I mean, I think CJ Stroud could possibly go a little higher. But I think there's still a lot of good quarterback. Like I still don't know if I would take CJ Stroud over Lamar. It's still really close, but I think right now I would take Stroud over say Trevor Lawrence, and I might
Yeah.
almost take Jordan Love over Trevor Lawrence at this
Yeah.
point. So
So quarterbacks king in NFL. Let's look at the running backs. Who's your running back that you think saved a lot of seasons?
my running back is David Montgomery. Coming into to the Lions, and they did pay him $10 million a year. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs, so we was hoping that they were going to have the Jamal Williams type workload. He did miss a couple games, but I feel like he did get that workload. But Jahmyr Gibbs was just too good to take off the field. But I feel like as far as a 1-2 combo goes, I think David Montgomery averaging 15 points a game, 12 touchdowns, did get the 1,000 yards, but he did miss a couple games. But I think this is the type of running back David Montgomery is, and I think if you're playing dynasty and you realize that going into next season your depth at running backs has to be pretty extreme, I think you could probably get David Montgomery on the cheap and have him as a backup running back and possibly start him all year as a solid depth piece.
And that's sort of I love that combo. I didn't see that happen to Montgomery. I mean, all signs pointed towards it because they paid him. But then again, they paid Miles Sanders and he was a pile of poop. But they went to Chuba by the end of the year. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. Build with receivers, run with run, put anybody in for running back. Because as I was creating this, trying to figure out the person I was going to use, Christian McCaffrey is the cheat code. But I thought, Christian McCaffrey, you picked him 1-1. You knew he was going to be good. Or 1-2 if you took Jefferson. You knew he was going to be good. But running back after that is a hot mess. So I went with the guy that scored a gajillion touchdowns. And I'm going to pair my guys. It's not really a homer pick. I really didn't want to pick Mostert. But I'll tell you why at the end of the show why I picked him. Because CMC is the main guy. But if you picked Mostert, more than likely, he was a waiver wire pickup. Both my two guys I'm going to talk about later was a waiver wire pickup. The dude rolled away with 18 plus touchdowns, and that's with him missing. So apologies if you were in the championship with him because he didn't play he got hurt the last 2 weeks, which stinks. But or last week rather. So, but during the year to have that dude who you got for nothing, you went receiver heavy and then got him late. Booyah! You're getting touchdowns out the wazoo. You're getting no receiving. That was the funny thing. Started out strong receiving, but nothing towards the end. But he was a touchdown machine. I don't see that repeating next year. I think they're going to put Achane in a little more. But for this year, if you had Raheem Mostert, boom, drop the mic on him. So I said I was pairing them together, and that would put him with Tyreek. So the Dolphins' offense was a speed offense, really based upon these two. Mostert getting the corner, Tyreek getting a gajillion yards and being cheetah fast. He had that injury and missed the one game, but still had the most yards in the NFL. CD's approach is and him are fighting for that title as we're recording. It looks like he'll probably pull it off barring a total collapse. He missed the 1 week versus injury, but I don't think you could ask for more out of Tyreek. Probably a late first, early second round pick in your league. So you picked him as your wide receiver 1, but didn't expect these kind of numbers. Even us homers didn't expect that. He said he was. He didn't reach his goal, but those two guys, if you had those two guys, had them on a team, I was putting up points hand over fist.
Yeah, the only thing you could ask for Tyreek was him to be there for you when it really counted. Because when you rely on the number one fantasy player all year, and then all of a sudden he doesn't play at the end of the year or the last game when you really need. Even when he did play, he wasn't scoring his normal amount of points, and that really leaves a sour taste in your mouth. So going into next year, I mean, if you're coming up and like who am I going to pick, this guy or that guy? I mean, well, I'm not going to pick Tyreek Hill because he let me down at the end of the year. I mean, I'm not going to say you shouldn't play that way, but I mean that does kind of hurt you a little bit when you don't perform at the end of the year. And Mostert, he did great. Mostert makes you realize that you've got to take chances on guys. Don't pass up people, especially running backs at the late end. You just start picking them up and drafting them and putting them on your team if you can. So, I mean, all running backs can be viable if they just get the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I think next year he'll be overdrafted, and Tyreek. I think that both will be overdrafted. Tyreek, I probably will rank him about 6 or 7 because you're going to have the big three, Amon-Ra, those guys in there. So it's interesting to see what happens. We got 2 more years of NFL playing football for Tyreek Hill, unless he has more kids. So who's your wide receiver?
Yeah, my receiver is Mike Evans. I didn't think Mike Evans was going to be able to do what he did. He's 30-year-old wide receiver. Baker Mayfield as your quarterback. I didn't think Baker Mayfield was going to be good, and Baker Mayfield turned out to be good, and his favorite receiver was Mike Evans. I just felt like every time he dropped back, especially at the beginning of the year, he was just throwing it to Mike Evans. 76 catches, another 1,000 yards season. Actually finished over 1,200. 13 more touchdowns. I mean, this guy, you drafted him. I don't know if you drafted him to be definitely didn't draft him to be a top 5 wide receiver. Then you probably drafted him to be more of your wide receiver too, and he gave you top 5 wide receiver numbers. It's insane. I don't know if you can expect this next year, but I think Mike Evans is still a very safe, valuable asset. That's what I'm looking for.
And I think he'll be cheaper next year. He's going to get that like late. I think the yardage will probably be down. They might look at getting Godwin into the game a little more next year. But Evans, yeah, solid pick. He was a surprise. I drafted him begrudgingly in our auction league where I came in second. I was like, oh, I'll take Mike Evans. And then, boom, he carried me to second place, which wasn't bad. But, yeah, I'm 100% with you. Baker loves him. So maybe there is a repeat next year. Maybe we're wrong.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go to my tight end. I'm going to go David Njoku, like the seven. You get a tight end, you get the 7 year breakout. Has been in the league a long time. We've all been waiting for this. We all thought he was going to be good. He's very athletic. And it just took a while. He finished the season with 81 catches, over almost 900 yards and 6 touchdowns. Finished as your wide receiver five. No one saw that coming into the season. Now it's not hard to be a top five tight end. I'm not gonna say that's not true. It is hard, but I mean, if you have a good season, it won't take much. And then once Joe Flacco came in, the offense
Damn.
kind of opened up. I mean, it was crazy. But even with Deshaun Watson looking like crap, I mean, he was still, he was still their best, their number one option. And I think it's a pretty safe bet next year. I mean, we can kind of expect the same kind of thing.
Yeah, I like the year seven breakout. That's about right. Like I got him off waivers. What was it, week 7 or 8 for us in our auction league, and rode him to the end. And I was like, oh well, he's there. Let's pick him up, and bam, he was on fire. It was just crazy to see after a guy that's just pooped the bed so many times. Now, most players don't do what my guy did, which was the opposite of Njoku himself. Sam Laporta. We love Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta joined that slew of Lions players that got over 10 touchdowns this year. Sam Laporta, this is a in memoriam to the to the real life playoffs possibility of Sam Laporta, which kind of stinks. He ended with 889 yards and 10 touchdowns, 86 catches, and then hyperextended his knee. So hopefully they can win that first game and he can play into the second week of the playoffs. If not, dude, this guy, I'm in love. He our dynasty consensus number one tight end right now.
I mean, I think at this point, I think it's pretty safe to say, man, had a great year. Rookie tight end doing these kind of numbers, it doesn't happen very often. And Travis Kelce looked like crap. Mark Andrews got injured. I mean, he still looked
McBride
okay.
for me.
Kittle just constantly disappears, and then there's McBride. I think Sam Laporta is very safe as your tight end one going into next year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when Hawks time window. That'll be the X factor on who is number one. So speaking of rookies, 1,445 yards, 5 touchdowns on 101 catches. That's DJ Dove's Rookie of the Year and favorite rookie of the 2023 fantasy football season. Puka Nacua came out, took over the reins when Cooper was out at the beginning of the season, and then him and Cooper sort of went back and forth, and they started both scoring together. I liked the kid a lot, and I never saw that happening though. Like I was bragging about him preseason. I thought, half of that yardage and maybe those touchdowns was probably where I thought. Did not see this. I think the Rams are going to be scary in the playoffs. I said that to someone this week. That's the team that if I was the 49ers, I'd be the most scared of.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody saw this coming. There wasn't a lot of talk about him and coming into the season, but I mean, he played fantastic. I mean, can't really expect anything more. I mean, let's just realize that going into next year, that he might not be able to produce this. Just because he doesn't mean he's going to be a terrible receiver. I mean, these kind of numbers are, career highs for some of the, best receivers. So like just temper expectations. If he gives you more, great, but enjoy what you have. But yeah, I mean, he's a great find, especially that low in the draft. I mean, you can't ask for anything more.
Yeah, love the season, love the future. Those two, if Cooper gets another year or so in there, those two next year are dangerous.
Yeah. Let's go with my guy. Let's talk about a position we hardly ever really talk about, and that's kicker. My last two picks, we can call them homer picks if you want. We'll call them they're both
Yeah, I
Cowboys.
did two Dolphins.
We'll throw them together here. And that's Braden Aubrey, rookie kicker. Just absolutely killed it. 35 for 35 on field goals. He was the number one kicker on the year, averaged 13 points. If you get your kicker averaging 13 points, that's fantastic. I mean, it's a great advantage to have. I mean, very consistent. He had nine 50-yard field goals. So I mean, that's crazy there, and he doesn't miss. I did miss 3 extra points, so he's not perfect. But I feel as far as kicker goes, I don't think you can have a much better season than this right here.
You are talking about the number one scoring Dallas Cowboy of all times. He took over Emmett on that crazy, wild, amazing season. So yeah, number one season scoring cow. I mean, I can't argue nothing there. It's crazy. That's our kicker talk for the year. Now, who's your fantasy MVP? If you want to
My
continue.
favorite, my fantasy MVPs. Let's stay with the Cowboys, and he's probably pretty much my favorite player at the moment. I thought he was going to be a great wide receiver coming in. I wasn't sure we can get to number one, but here we are at the end of the season, the number one wide receiver. And currently, as we speak, he is currently taking it to the Washington Commanders, continuing his crazy fantasy year. 122 catches, 1,600 yards, 10 touchdowns. That'll all be different by the time this game's over. Added 2 touchdowns on the ground, so he can run the ball, but started out a little rough. I mean, at the week 6 on, he was the number one receiver in every category. So if he could just get that full season in, he's only 24 years old. And with a more reliable quarterback than, let's say, the Minnesota Vikings, I seriously think by the time next season rolls around, CD Lamb could be in discussion for wide receiver one.
There is no discussion. CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver one.
All right.
Jamar Chase, even with Burrow, he was slow to start, but that was Burrow's slow season. Jefferson, who knows who's throwing to Jefferson next year with Kirk Cousins there? It could be a closer discussion, but I think I had CD as written down. I had 3 guys written down: CD, CMC, and then the guy I chose. But CD, to me, you touted him. He was your player. The guy. No, he was your second guy, because we both went with guys that we thought wouldn't be the super number one. But yeah, CD balled out. CD costing me some championships. So I'm gonna try to get CD everywhere I can. He's gonna go for a ton of money in our auction league next year because you and I are gonna bid him up, and then you have a lot of rookies in it. But you can't argue with results. They threw the ball and a lot to CD. I got like it's. You're right. You love my guy, so I'm going to talk about him too to follow up CD Lamb, and he was a guy that won teams championships. He got Cam Akers kicked off the team basically. That was Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams had, good golly, 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns. What can you do? I mean, he balled out. That's followed with 32 receptions.
Yeah. I think in that offense, with the season that he had this year, I think going into next year, I think you can very, very safely see Kyron Williams doing this again, possibly even better, because McVay is not going to go away from him. That's been proven. So he's going to get all the carries, and if the passing game continues what it's doing, it's just going to open up so much. And I'm not going. He can't. Of course, he's not going to be better than CMC, but I think he's going to have a crazy high ceiling being drafted. Possibly the number 2 running back next year.
Yeah, him and Taylor, Breece Hall, all within that range there, probably.
Now, I will say, Breece, it's going to be tough for me to take Kyron Williams over Breece Hall. But I mean, it would be tough because Breece Hall has just absolutely murdered it the last 3 or 4 weeks. Fantasy football playoff season is going to be great. Hopefully, the team is a little better. But yeah, Kyron Williams, I don't think you can get much safer than Kyron Williams at the moment.
15 touchdowns. I mean, yeah, he won people because he literally was the week 1 waiver wire pickup of the week for teams. So yeah, I think I probably would agree with you. He'd probably be currently running back 3 off the board. Put Breece 2, CMC until dethroned, and then he'd be a hairline above Jonathan Taylor, who started to come on towards the end, and then let him fall in. But as we look at if you get a chance, anybody, go look at the running back stats this year in fantasy football. It's a hot mess of who's that, why is he there. It's crazy to look at when you look at the season, but that's what makes fantasy amazing. That's what also makes those of us like myself who are 0 running back drafters happy. So that means we have a better chance of winning. So JJ Wang, those are the guys that we think had great turnarounds for teams, fantasy MVPs, or guys we just really wanted to highlight because they saved people's seasons. Give us some wisdom as we wrap up week 18, relax during the playoffs, and prepare for dynasty offseason, baby.
With the offseason coming up, if you just pay a little bit of attention, I think you can be one of the rare ones, and you're able to take advantage of the guys or ladies that don't necessarily pay as much attention in the offseason And those little trades can be helpful, especially like depth pieces at this point. I mean, if you can find those depth pieces and being able to stash, because we all seen it, the amount of running backs you needed this year, the amount of quarterbacks, it was just insane. So just try to make up all that depth in the offseason. I think you can find it a little easier. As always, trust yourself and trust the process.